Happy New Year, family. This is your boy Gerald. It is the 9th of January 2022. How is everybody doing? So, how was your New Year's? I hope you were well. I hope that as wherever you may be in a town near you, city near you, state near you, worldwide, you are at peace. Because, see, I know that some of you took time to actually count the hours down. And as you were counting those hours down, you were making intentions, mind, body, and spirit. But while you were making those said intentions, you were also reflecting. And actually, you had been reflecting to a point that you had been doing it subconsciously as the weeks crept closer and closer to the conclusion of 2021. Who am I talking to? So now that we're 9 days in, is the action step there? Has there been a deliberate uh, dis- uh, dissolvement of choices or habits that you just know that just don't work? You've gotten to that point of saying it's okay and you're ready to claim the road less traveled. See, when you're able to do that, truly, you'll be finally tapping into a courage, an identity that has been there all along. Let that resonate a little bit. Because, see, I know this is untraveled ground. It's going to be new. It's going to feel like you don't know if you should place your foot down completely. No different than walking barefoot in the grass, wondering if there's something underneath the blades that you can't see. See, that definition in itself is beautiful because what is being shown is you have the commitment, you have the intentions, and the motivation to do what is needed all along. And I commend you for that. So, what have I been doing? So, as I began the month of December, I already had been mentally processing things that, because see, I'm a work in progress, just like you. We are spiritual beings first before the physical aspect. The physical aspect is nothing but a vehicle on this earthly realm, but you're a spiritual being first. Do not ever forget that. So, I knew that there were things that I had to bring to a close. But before I could say goodbye, before I could emotionally divorce myself or place distance in said choice, said behaviors, I had to first find comfort in my discomfort. And I've always echoed that through the years. See, until you are able to identify, to make aware of what does not fit, can you have the ability to change it? Now, for some, they think that this may be something that can be done instantly. And usually in those cases, drama's not too far from it. There's some type of crescendo that is always with a climactic ending. But I've come to learn through this almost a decade now, it starts here. It is actually activated and shown here. Bear with me, family. We got somebody flying in. And sometimes it's easier said than done. It is. Because that's where spontaneity, that's where impulse, and sometimes recklessness can be birthed. But what I've come to also understand is this: to have change, you must first be able to tap into your transparency. You've always heard me echo this. It doesn't matter what's outside your door. It don't. But what is reliant on the effect of what's found outside your door is the person that's going to walk in it, the person that's going to show up. Some may call that as your representative, but so many people, especially in this era that we live in, allow their representative to misrepresent them. Who am I talking to? So, you've always heard me say, well, when's enough enough? So, and I say that because, this morning after I fed Ming and walked him and went upstairs to shower and, put my clothes on, as the water was cascading down my body, and I'm, doing what I gotta do, it was at that time I tapped into a thought process that I had to focus on. So what do you mean by that, Gerald? See, for some of you, first of all, how rude, how rude. First of all, if you've never seen my videos, my name is Gerald Davis. I'm a YouTuber, I'm a spiritualist, and I've had this channel since October of 2011. You couldn't tell, but I say that with love. So what I convey comes from spirit, and it is shared through the intended heart, intended mind. And my whole position is to inspire the best you while you're here on this planet. I mean, I get it. We live in a world now that is so materialistic, and there's so many labels but even with those descriptive terms, we still sidestep what's most important. You. So why is that, Gerald? Because how can you strive to reveal the person that you truly are if you do not know who you are? And if you do not know who you are, how are you going to understand not only what is being shown in your reality, but where you're going? Or better yet, what your foundation is in present time. Who am I talking to? See, when you look on social media these days, there's a social division going on. But when it comes to the meat and potatoes, the one thing that is never discussed is free will, the effects of free will, and the reality of choice. So, the question I'm going to ask you is this: when are you going to decide it's time? When are you going to say, you know what? Make a note of where you are right now. Right now. Looking back, did it support to what makes your reality today? Or has it been something that has stifled you? Let that sink in. Because it just seems like as the era continues on, we have more people playing a role than claiming themselves. I was always the person that would always convey to you, see your value, claim your worth. Because until you see your value, you will not understand how to protect your worth, but yet what is required that makes your integrity. See, I get it. I know that we live in a world that you have so much vibrato, so much uh, energy of look at me. But when you water down that, 50% of what is actually put out there is illusion. That is why bad behavior is celebrated. That is why shock and awe always will get the algorithm to go up. And truth stays where it is. Why? Because there's an agenda. See, as long as you don't focus on you, someone else is going to benefit from it. Someone's going to monetize your being, who you are, what you stand for, how you spend your money, who you gravitate to compared to who support you, who uplifts you. But let me tell you this. It's 2022 now, family. And if you've been holding on to something, I used to always say when it comes to traumas, burdens, pain, people compartmentalize their emotions and put it in an emotional backpack, and they will carry it until it gets too hard, too heavy. Well, 2022 is about transparency, but ownership. So what do you mean about transparency and ownership, Gerald? Listen, you remember back in the day, in the hip hop community, Guru had a song out called No Faking, No Future in Your Front. I think it was Gangstar that did it. I may be wrong. Look that up for me. Put it in the comments. No future in your front. And but look at where we are now. Look at where we are now. There's so many frauds out here, but out of that percentage of those that are being deliberately, blatantly fraudulent, they're making money off of you. And it's not about the materialism that I'm pointing at. I'm talking about the resource that it pulls from: your time, the energy that comes from you, but the empowerment that you lack. Who am I talking to? So, 22, some of y'all are at this point where you're saying, well, you know what? I gave it a go for XYZ amount of time. You know what I'm talking about. That. And you're at a point where you're saying, you know what? The mindset of fake it to make it, or to get along, or if you can't join them, beat them mindset, you got to do something different now. You got to do something more, because you're ready to turn that page. You're ready to claim your life back. You're ready to take the road less traveled. Who am I talking to? So some of y'all, unfortunately, as 2021 was coming to a close, you started catching some things that was brought into your awareness. Some things were explosive. Some things were, unfortunately, somber but disappointing in the same price, because it was more or less the mindset of, I'm not going to do anything. If there's going to be anything, you going to do it, which really was covert of saying, well, you know what, because I don't see your value and worth, but I'm gonna save my dignity and say, well, you chose to do this. Who am I talking to? Well, some of y'all, like at this point now, you're saying, well, you know what? It's not about what was said. It's not about what was done. It's about what needs to be completed. And you are moving at a feverish pitch where you are putting the periods behind the statements and the actions. You are looking at the things proverbially by like lifting your emotional welcome mat, and you're lifting under there and you're sweeping out everything underneath that have been built up. You're actually emotionally tapped in. I congratulate you because it was in due time that that had to happen. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I would be remiss not to say this. Because they're not, because if you, because you proverbially physically close the door or emotionally distance yourself, do not think for one remote second that that means closure. I don't know what you're talking about, Gerald. I done moved on. That boat done sailed. That chapter is closed. No, it's not. It's not. All that's done is an intermission. You know, like when you got a long movie and then you got the intermission, and what happens? That's when people get up, go to the concession stand, and they re-up, they stretch, they use the bathroom, they do what they got to do, and they come right back to the process of what they were doing. So I'm a I'm a caveat off. I'm gonna pivot off of that since because I remember I did a video talking about if your life was a movie and you were in a theater and you're looking at your life as you're in that theater. It's dark, your focus is right on the screen of everything that you have seen, you have felt, the things that you subconsciously forgot about, but it takes a emotional trigger to bring it up, may it be good or bad, but it's all played out. What I'm describing is your lifeline. But you know what? What we tend to overlook a lot of times is this. We forget about the audience that are also seeing that lifeline. We're forgetting about those people that were that had roles in that period of time, in your development, in your growth. But we can also do this one. How about the people they may have made had paid the intermission to sit in the theater but fell asleep. They fell asleep in the middle of your timeline, the matinee, only to feel like they missed something. I'm talking about those folks, and they feel cheated. They feel like, wait a minute, hold on, I didn't pay my fee of admission, meaning the access to this person's life, and I fell asleep. I.e., they were not invested in you. Why? Because they didn't see the value of having access to you to begin with. So guess what? They're gonna be the first ones. They're gonna be saying, well, they're gonna downplay it. They're gonna miss the context of what was being shown. How beautiful, how priceless of this admission. Do you realize? I've always, and I will continue till my last breath. You cannot go to anywhere structurally and buy your life. That's why you see so many people go on social media these days, especially our young babies that are trying to figure it out. But instead of looking at what's required And commitment, they cherry pick it. They say, well, you know what, I'll take the meat and throw away the bones. But have the audacity to have an attitude when they don't. It may be that one subtle thing that can change the dynamic of what is being shown. And because I said, what do you mean, Drew? What are you talking about? I'm following, but I'm not. Your life is the greatest gift ever bestowed to another human being. How can you have commonality or understanding with your audience if you don't know you? There has to be a commitment. There has to be an investment of time to even yield growth. What I'm talking about not only is your evolution of self, I'm talking about the beauty of your worth. That's why a person that is truly committed to this process, they can walk in a room and control it without saying one word because they feel the energy that this person resonates or emits. You know, just like in the opposite. I used to always use the example of you got that one person that is just negative, toxic, friend, family, or whatever. And if you're in the midst of them, you feel that energy. But far too many times do we not acknowledge this one thing. We are what we attract. Who am I talking to? See, the greatest lie that was ever told to man that the devil doesn't exist. But right in that top 5 was opposites attract. Nah. Because if that was the case, excuse me, if that was the case, why is it that I could have a room full of millionaires and I take Johnny Homeless in there, and why can't that homeless person become a millionaire too? What y'all got to talk about? That ain't gonna work. Why? Because it's mindset. It's mentality. But let's not get it twisted. Because you could have all the money in the world. You could have all the assets in the world that you could physically obtain. But you'll still be miserable. That's why you'll hear, I believe in 22, you will hear a lot of people say, the greatest things describing happiness are free. You know why? Because it is defined and displayed through truth. You have no restraint if you're walking in truth. And I think a lot of you are going to do that. I think a lot of you are going to say, well, you know what? This is the time that I need to sit my ass down. This is the time that you say, well, you know what? I own my behavior. I don't know who that person was last year, but I don't want to have nothing to do with them now. And what's going to happen is going to come with a price, because that price is going to be your environment that you've come to nurture. Because you do know that your environment is made by what's found and what's stimulated in your mind. Now, here's a question that a lot of people don't talk about. If you remember in Genesis, the scripture said it all started by the word. I'm ad-libbing it. Before there was anything, there was the word. So, how can you be inspired without it? Some can say it's actions and behaviors, right? Well, how can you have actions and behaviors without commitment? That's an action word. That means you got to make a decision. Now that doesn't mean that it got to be thought out, because a lot of times that's what mistakes are. We make a choice impulsively, jump in head first, only to realize this ain't what we want. And I think a lot of y'all are at this point where you're saying, well, listen here. I'm grateful for the little things. And you're doing a lot of reflecting on that. Some of y'all are taking that and springboarding that and saying, well, you know what? Not only do I appreciate the little things, but I like the result that it spawns because it helps me tap into a part of me that I hold dear. It causes me to hold myself in a regard that I must protect at all costs. And then that's why some of y'all are like, if you ain't riding with me, you're getting left. Who am I talking to? Now listen, there's nothing wrong with protecting your value. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is the influence of what you define it? You define it as. What was the influence? Because if you're basing it off of what you see, the stimulus of what you see, and you don't have access to the investment that it took to display it, you can be misled. And I think a lot of y'all feel a certain kind of way because number one, you convinced yourself of something that was not true. And the fact that real recognizes real, like no different than if I take a small diamond and a big cubic zirconia and compare the two, yes, you have free will to choose, but do you know the difference of what has value compared to what does not? And I think 22 is going to be, it's going to be really a nuts and bolt year for a lot of y'all. You're putting your emotional hard hats on. You're breaking out your tools. Some of y'all are actually saying, you know what, I'm not waiting till spring. This got to go. And after several amounts of time of contemplation, you've gotten to the process of elimination, saying, listen, this is more burdensome than just going with the flow. And I commend you for that because unfortunately not a lot of people are going to do that. A lot of people are going to look at the years gone by and it's going to be just another footnote to be carried on this 12-month cycle. So you got to make a decision. Now, I got this feeling some of y'all said I'm changing up my diet. At first you said, well, I'm gonna try something different. You saying you thought it was a hobby, but really it was a passion. But that passion is really a calling from your true self, saying, "Come get me. I need you to come this way. I need you to be laser focused on that no matter what. Do not get distracted." Some of y'all got that in the back of your mind saying, well, you know what? I know that juggling don't work. I know that all this procrastination that I've found comfort in, it really had a price and it has cheated me because really that procrastination was nothing but fear. And it wasn't fear of doing it, it was fear of claiming you. Who am I talking to? So if you're fully committed to yourself, congratulations. It's going to be a lot of change this year for you. But let me put this out there. You cannot embrace change if you're not willing to let go of what has been holding you back. That could be a mindset, that could be a committed behavior, that could also be the environment that you have built to sustain yourself that you know has no longevity. Who am I talking to? I gotta say this too before I go. Some of you have given up on love. You truly think that you are unlovable. You have actually, you're like, I'm not making concessions no more. I want someone for me. Well, if that's you, they will come when you claim you. They don't want the representative. They don't want that. They want the person that wakes up in the morning with the coal in their eyes, with the little stinky breath in the morning, the ones that hasn't put the makeup on or put on the gear to step out and work. They want that because that's the realest person that they can have access to. That's who they're going to be drawn to. So if you're not comfortable with that person first, does it make sense why everything else that has that same mindset don't work out? It's just like going to a buffet table with endless choices and you're just picking when actually you know you want this certain entree, custom tailored for you. And that's how you should look at yourself. You are the entree. You are the masterpiece. You do realize, listen, do you not realize you were born two things when you took your first breath? Number one, when you were born, there was a covenant over your life. There are things that you agreed to be on this earthly realm that you have to fulfill. You know what it is. Yeah, that's your calling. That's your purpose. And then the second thing is you were made perfect. As we mature, it's like having a piece of marble, right? And as you go through life experiences, pieces of that marble breaks off through experience, through pressure, through growth, through evolution, only to reveal at the end who the person you were destined to be. That's why I used to tell people all the time, I'm not going to be winded. For those who are having friendship and bond relationship issues, I conveyed this a long time ago. If you want to know if your friends are your friends, ask them this one question. What is your purpose? Because if a person genuinely has your best interests at heart, guess what? It's because they're living it through example through theirs. And if they can't answer that, then you'll know, because they'll turn around and ask you that same question that you just conveyed 3-4 times, trying to flip it because they're trying to think on the fly. Do yourself a favor. Sidestep the negative. Get out of their way so they can go figure it out on their own. But on the flip side, you got to be able to walk it like you talk it too. You can't be asking someone what's your purpose and you don't know. To understand what your purpose is requires discernment. Work to truly illustrate your purpose requires unconditional love of self. I'm not talking about being conceited. I'm talking about unconditional commitment to who you are. You do understand that, right? Because until you're able to understand that part, will you understand where you've been, what you did not do compared to what is required of you to do, and exactly where you're going. And guess what? If you do commit to that, the person that was meant to be in your life will be revealed. Why do you think people go through breakups so much? Toxicity. These are all aspects that are found in the human dynamic. Do you know that, right? Because those people are mirrors of yourself. Remember? We are what we attract. So if you have drama in your life, it's because your mindset attracts it. That's why you have some people that have convinced themselves through time that if there's no drama, there's no love. That is one of the greatest lies ever told. I remember I told the story about this young lady telling me that, if a guy doesn't disrespect her, if he doesn't put his hands on her, he don't love her. No. What he's showing you is he has no way of protecting you because he does not respect himself. And vice versa, because let's call a spade a spade. With feminism has convinced a lot of impressionable women that, yeah, if he can do it, I can do it too. Well, if that was the case, there would be one gender. What they call it, omnisexual? No. Mm-mm. Just like a lock to a key. You have to have the two to unlock what's on the other side of that life, to birth it. Don't you get what I'm trying to say? You are beautiful. But until you can see it for yourself, you're not only doing a disservice to those that will have access to your life or you come in contact with, because misery loves company. And I always would say misery is like an endless table with endless chairs waiting for you to sit down, because the moment you sit down, that's the moment that your life stops, maybe emotionally, because there's a lot of people walking around dead inside, walking around broken inside. And what ends up happening when people end up going through life by themselves? They can, like I said, they can have all the money, all the influence they want, but they're lonely. You know why? Because the little boy and the little girl that still lives in you today is yearning for that. If you don't feel the happiness that you had as that little boy and that little girl, you ain't living your life. You're not. Don't you get it? Don't you get it? Now I'm going to tell you this too. If your environment does not have a spiritual relationship, they can never protect you directly or indirectly. They will never have your best interest at heart. Why? Because their best interest should replicate who they are. Why would they put themselves at rest to be with you? They should have that same value. If they don't inspire the best you? How can they be the voice of reason? You know, come on now. But you let people in the cheap seats tell you, oh nah, as long as they got something to fold, I got somewhere to roll. Okay. Well, last time I checked, your soul was not for sale. So on a different note, if you're feeling me, give me a thumbs up. Share the video. I got a goal for this one. I want over 100 likes and over 100 views. I want you to send this to that person that may need to hear this, because how can you understand you or listen to those who have access that or should have the voice of reason to protect you if you're not ready or willing? Because some of the best communication that ever can be conveyed is by silence. Who am I talking to? You turn around trying to rationalize why they doing what they doing, but they're showing you why they're doing it by what they're not doing. Who am I talking to? When in actuality, they don't even deserve to hear you breathe. Gotta wake up, family. Cause some of y'all saying I'm living in a nightmare, Joe. I just want to wake up. When is my happy ever after gonna come? It's gonna come the moment that you decide to love you. When you decide to say, I deserve more. When you're willing to have that conversation that's been in your heart for so damn long, but you were worried about how they were going to be receptive. Let me tell you something. If they don't love you, how are they going to listen to you? And you wonder why their actions don't reverberate that. I'm not bashing. I'm not. But the longer you allow this to keep going, the longer what you're really doing is cheating yourself of time, because nobody knows when they're going to take their last breath. You're not promised. There are people, unfortunately, that woke up today that won't wake up tomorrow. And then that's a whole different subject. Then it ends up being, what did your life stand for? What does your legacy mean? And what's really funny, I mentioned this figuratively last month. You realize all this stuff you see on social media? That your generations are going to see this? They're going to see it. And they're going to like, wow, that's what you thought? Wow. And some of y'all, it's going to be a stark reality check, because you're like, okay, that's where I got that from. But on the flip side, you're going to have some people going to say, you know what? I wish I had an opportunity to just spend 5 minutes with this person just to get some wisdom from them. Because there's something I used to say a long time ago, and I'm gonna tailor this off. If you had the ability to have access just for a mere moment to your ancestors, you know, to those who have already been called home, would they welcome you with a deep hug and a kiss and say, I'm proud of you? Or would they wish to grab the first thing they can to beat the hell out of you because you're disrespecting the family name? Who am I talking to? Think about it. What do you stand for? What do you stand for? Just know you're loved. And for those who are waiting for your forever, you got to do the work. You can't do this anymore. Because if it don't match this, it's never going to match this. And more of the same will continue. That's all I'm saying. So, on a different note, thank you for if you don't know, you got any questions, concerns, inbox me. Don't worry about your privacy and stuff because everything gets vetted. So you don't have to worry about that. Anonymity is always there. Um, but I will say this to one of the subscribers. I did read that, and those ideas are going to come into fruition. That is actually, I almost got my spare bedroom set. Went and set it up really, I'm about 93% ready. And some of you you wanted to see the island. I'm going to make sure that that happens. Now, the reason why I was dragging my feet, and if you did not know, is because for YouTube standards, I have to have 1,000 subscribers. I've had my channel for over almost a decade now. I haven't even broke 700. Why? I speak truth, not disrespect. I speak empowerment, not destruction. And guess what? That goes against the devil's plan. Because you can't monetize when somebody's talking about bettering yourself. No. That's why it's slow. And they use this way of, well, he'll choke himself out. That's why the people that should be heard don't get the platforms, because they're not disrespecting themselves. So, with that being said, I have a Patreon account. I have a Vimeo account. And I'm getting ready to set up my StreamYard account too. So, all this stuff is coming. I am on Instagram. Feel free to drop on my channel. And I will be posting across the board. Also, 2022 is about better health. Because, one of the things that I actually prayed about for over a decade was I talked about mental health, because you're looking at a man that suffered from depression for over 20 plus years from my childhood, and I struggled because I was a person that just didn't fit in. Not because I was an introvert. It's just in my spirit, I just couldn't get with the norm. I've always been a person that has always traveled by my own beat, But I'll be talking about that later through the years too. But nonetheless, those videos are coming. That's my direction. I will be sharing that perspective. Now, Island. Most likely the content will be on Patreon, StreamYard, and the other portals until I need at least 1,000 subscribers. Help me. You know what I'm saying? So, thank you from those who have been supporting me since day one. Thank you for finding this video. If this is your first time, I've got over 1,000 videos in my catalog. 1,000. So that should tell you. But just know, the best you is coming. But it cannot get there any quicker until you decide to commit to claiming you. When you make that decision, you'll learn what your grace is, what temperance is all about. You'll tap into your willpower and this beautiful word called no. Because the word no doesn't mean forever. It means under review. So why accept something that you should not? But first, you must be able to find comfort in your voice. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about this. Because there's power there. And watch those. Look, you're gonna learn this word. You're gonna hear this term. You know how they used to say on a sinking ship, abandon ship. The more and more that you gravitate to yourself and you watch them leave. Don't get in the way. Sidestep that. And just as I always used to say, sometimes you got to get out of someone's way to claim your rightfully own. Why? You're perfect. You're blessed. And you're you. Love to hear from you. Bye.